today I'm going to run you through the last part of your coursework, the last thing you need to complete. There are 3 parts to the coursework, remember. There's your cover, your double page spread, and the last thing I need you to complete is something called your statement of aims. So the statement of aims, basically, it's a little bit of writing, kind of like a short essay, where you explain all the choices you've made with your coursework. So why have you chosen that colour scheme? Why have you chosen to include these cover lines? Why have you chosen this as the focus of your article, etc.? What was the reasoning behind all of that? What was your rationale when you decided and made those decisions? It's approximately 250 words it needs to be. So, but you can also be a little bit under and a little bit above. So it can be between 225 and 275 words. I think it's quite short for the amount that you could actually write. So just make sure, you need to make sure the points you're making are really concise and to the point. The coursework itself is out of 60 marks in total. And remember, those 60 marks, they're going to make up 30% of your GCSE. It's quite a lot. And the statement of aims is worth 10 out of those 60 marks. So really, if you did a really good statement of aims, it could boost you up a grade. If you did a statement of aims that wasn't that good, it could bring you down a grade. So it's important that you do the best you can with this part of the coursework. What you're doing in that short essay then is you're explaining why you made the choices that you did with your designs, and you're also explaining to the examiner how you are meeting the brief that they have set. So remember, your brief was to make a special interest magazine aimed at 14 to 20-year-olds. Some of you have made beauty magazines, some of you have made gaming magazines, some of you have made art magazines, all different kinds of special interests. But the really important part of the brief that you need to address in your statement of aims is the fact that it's going to be a magazine targeting 14 to 20-year-olds. So when you go into a newsagent or you look at a magazine stand, it's really quite obvious the types of magazines that are aimed at older audiences and the types of magazines that are aimed at younger audiences. You can just tell immediately from looking at the cover. So hopefully with your front cover, with your double page spread, it's quite obvious that your magazine is targeting that younger audience of 14 to 20-year-olds. And you have to explain how you've done that in your statement of aims. You also need to make sure you use a lot of media terminology. So remember, when we were in school, you were doing those fortnightly terminology tests. It's about working in as much of that media-specific terminology as possible. So what I'm going to do in this video is go over terminology. You can then make notes and try and work in as much of it as possible into your short essay. You need to, as well, in a short essay, refer to specific examples from your work. So you can't just say, I've used a really girly colour scheme. That's not enough. What colours have you used? What do those colours connote? I've made my mode of address really informal and casual for a younger audience. Okay, well, give me an example of a headline you've used or a cover line that has that type of informal mode of address. So those are the key things then. You need to explain your design choices. You have to address the brief, explain how you've met that brief, and use lots of media terminology as well whilst you're doing that. So the best way I thought of showing you how to do this properly, I thought, was to show you a couple of other products I've made. So I've been busy designing some more front covers, and to explain to you, like, if I was going to write a statement of aims for each of these products, the type of thing I would write, and then hopefully you can use the same method that I've done but for your product. Now, I did not want to give you too much help, so these magazine covers I've designed for last year's brief. Last year's brief for the year before you, they had to make either a fashion or a fitness magazine aimed at 16 to 24-year-olds, so slightly older audience of men or women. So you can see here I've made a fitness magazine for men and a fashion magazine for women. But as you can tell, I've thought, or I hope you can tell anyway, I've thought very carefully about my design choices, about the type of language I use, about my layout. To make these covers, like you did beforehand, I did a ton of research. I looked at loads of men's fitness magazines. I looked at loads of women's fashion magazines. And I looked at what they had in common so that could help me with my own design. But do not forget, I mean, these I've designed for last year's brief, but this year's brief, a special interest magazine targeting 14 to 20-year-olds. The decisions I've made, the designs I've completed, and the statement of aims I'm going to write is for a different brief. You need to keep in mind 14 to 20-year-olds. How am I targeting 14 to 20-year-olds with my design? Right, so I said that a good statement of aims, to get a decent number of marks in your statement of aims, you need to use a lot of media terminology within that, and you need to refer to specific things about your product. To help you do that, I'm going to revise some terminology with you right now. So this is the first cover I made, a fitness magazine for 16 to 24-year-old men. A different brief, again, remember, than what you have. Yours is more for teenagers. I'm going to go through quickly, just a quick recap of the key features so that when I'm describing my product and my statement of aims, I can use the right terminology. So your masthead, obviously. Your masthead is your title of your magazine. So if I just drag that over there, masthead. Cover lines are those little bits of text down the side of the cover that are basically advertisements for the articles that are inside the magazine. So I've got a range there. I've got Leg Day 101, Level Up Your Arm Game, Fuel Food to give you the ultimate boost, 24 hacks for harder abs. They're all cover lines. Strapline, that's the little slogan for your magazine. So I've put mine there next to the masthead, just sums up what the magazine's all about. So I've put no pain, no gain. Your flash, that's like, it's kind of like a sticker that's been stuck on your cover inside a shape, and it's some kind of incentive to buy the magazine. So it might be offering a free product inside, it might be giving you a voucher code inside. Overlay, so overlay, remember, is when anything is layered on top of anything else. So here, the model here, this guy is overlaying my masthead. So I might want to refer to that when I'm explaining the choices I made with this cover. And the main image, obvious, it's that guy holding that weight there. Right. So there's some of the more basic terms when it comes to describing your magazine. Anchorage. Anchorage, remember, means text that's used to give meaning to an image. So in this instance, so a kind of a picture, it could be anything. If I had to just put that girl on there and not put her name, she could be anyone. Like, what is she? Who is she? I haven't anchored the meaning of that image for the reader. So I've created anchorage here by putting Elise, influencer extraordinaire. You've got an overlay again because she is overlaying my masthead there. Typography. Typography essentially is the type of lettering you've used, the type of font you've used. So rather than say font, it's better for you to say typography. The left third, we've spoken about the left third in lessons, and how when people are designing magazine front covers, they'll often put some of the most important stuff or the most attention grabbing stuff, they'll put it in the left third of the cover, because traditionally when magazines are lined up on a shelf, it's the left third that's exposed. So often the main selling points of the issue, people will put in the left third. Celebrity endorsement. So a celebrity endorsement is basically when a celebrity is giving their endorsement, their kind of thumbs up to a brand or a product. So by having this influencer on the cover of my magazine, she's essentially endorsing my magazine and saying it's a good magazine and she wants to be associated with it. So my covers actually use celebrity endorsement there. Right, so those are key terms for the different aspects of your magazine you might want to refer to. Key concepts for media studies that you're really well acquainted with anyway, but I thought I'd just go over it just in case, because these are terms you're going to want to use all throughout your statement of aims as well. Denotation and connotation. So denotation, the denotation is the sign. It's what's right there in front of you. So the word that's in front of you, the colour that's in front of you, the image that's in front of you, that's the denotation. The connotation is what we choose to associate with it. So for instance, if an image denotes the colour blue, a connotation of that could be masculinity. We do often associate blue with masculinity. If a text denotes a heart, that could be connoting love. We associate hearts with love. It's like when you text someone and if you put a love heart, it's like love you type thing. Have a look at your cover and think, what have I denoted on there? So if your cover denotes the colour red, what is that intended to connote? Power, aggression, etc. Have a think about that. So you can use those sentence starters I've put there. So the image denotes, this connotes. And it works not just for images, not just for colours, but for words too. So my cover line denotes the word such and such. This connotes my magazine is the best, or whatever. So if I just go to my covers now and like kind of explain some of the things that I've denoted on my covers and what they're intended to connote. On the front cover for Gains, the guy is holding like a 20 kg weight. That obviously connotes that he's really strong and he has really good fitness himself. So he's aspirational for my audience. Besides the colour red, which I wanted to connote kind of like power and strength and aggression, I've also got the colours black and white to kind of connote seriousness and imply that this magazine and its audience take fitness really seriously. With my other magazine, my fashion magazine Influence, I have used a colour palette of pinks and nudes because they tend to connote femininity, modern femininity. My model is using direct mode of address. Remember, that's when either within your product somebody is looking at the audience, or within your product the text is speaking to the audience directly. That's direct mode of address, and it connotes that she's confident and happy with her look, and that's how I want my readers to feel. She's wearing quite a natural makeup look, which connotes that she's comfortable in her own skin. That's also how I would want my audience to feel. The masthead itself, Influence, connotes that people will admire you, look up to you, as they do influencers, if you buy this magazine and follow the tips inside. So I thought carefully about what I was going to put on that cover. I thought, I'm going to denote this so that it connotes that. So that's denotation and connotation. Intertextuality. Okay, this is a really good one to mention. So intertextuality, remember, is when one media product refers to another. So I don't know if you've seen the music video for Ariana Grande, Thank You Next, but it has tons of intertextuality in it. So there are a couple of scenes, like you can see there, where she's mimicked the styling and like the mise-en-scène of scenes from Mean Girls. Family Guy has tons of intertextuality in it. Most episodes referencing other media products. So here you can see Family Guy are referencing Star Wars. So have you made any intertextual links on your own cover? For instance, if I show you my cover again, Instant Insta Glam, I've made, if you look at the sentence starter here, an intertextual link is made with Instagram. That's another media product, social media platform, Instagram. And I did that on purpose because I know that my audience, 16 to 24-year-old girls, most of them have Instagram and use Instagram a lot. Another intertextual link I have made is with prettylittlething.com. So if you look in my flash, 20% voucher for prettylittlething.com inside. So I've there referenced the Pretty Little Thing website, and I made an intertextual link there with prettylittlething.com because I know that that's a really popular website with 16 to 24-year-old women, and also most women 16 to 24 nowadays do most of their shopping online. So that's why I picked a shopping website to feature there. So I've made some very carefully thought out intertextual links there on my cover. Have you made any yourself? Have a look. Next term, house style. So magazines work hard to develop a house style. A house style, as I've put here, is a recognisable style to the whole magazine which is memorable to readers. And they develop that house style by always using a certain typography, so a certain font, a certain kind of layout, similar colour schemes. And that really helps to make that magazine stand out on the shelf. So if I scan a shelf, again, if I scan a magazine shelf, Vogue always jumps out because of that iconic font for the GQ. Similarly, they always have that same logo for GQ. They always have quite a muted colour palette with kind of one bright colour to stand out, and generally quite a stereotypically masculine colour palette as well. So your magazine's house style, what kind of house style were you working to create and why? So if I look at my covers that I made, the house style for Gaines was kind of, I wanted to create quite a sophisticated house style, but also quite a sporty house style as well. So that's why I've kind of got my cover model in sports gear. That's why I've included the stripes. That's why I've used kind of stencil military style typography to connote the kind of discipline and hard work that's involved in fitness. So it's a very bold and powerful house style, I guess you could say. With my magazine Influence, I wanted the house style to be very sleek and modern. So I chose a lot of fonts that were quite square, sans serif fonts because they're more modern looking. I used the white to make it appear modern and fresh. Brand identity, right. Brand identity, you will have also, with your products, besides like kind of laying out your house style, so this is what my magazine looks like, you'll have been trying to create a brand identity for your magazine. So a brand identity is what your brand stands for, the associations you want people to make with it. So when people pick up your magazine, how do you want your magazine to make them feel? By buying it, by purchasing it, by reading it. So Vogue magazine, for example, the brand identity is very high class. It's very aspirational. I mean, if you look inside, the clothes that are advertised are like thousands of pounds. It includes all of the very like finest luxury designers out there. So the brand identity is very high class, very high fashion. GQ as well, the brand identity of GQ. So GQ stands apart from other men's magazines in that it's all about, and it's in the masthead itself, being a gentleman. So the modern gentleman, about being suave, sophisticated, intelligent. So remember the brand statement for GQ being for the man with an IQ. A more kind of highbrow men's magazine, and that's the brand identity for GQ. So how would you describe your magazine's brand identity? Is it wanting to be quite quirky, quite different to other magazines, quite alternative? Is it wanting to kind of target itself at girls who really want to be up to date with the latest trends? If I look again at my own covers, the kind of brand identity I've tried to create. So Gaines magazine is a fitness magazine. It's all about taking fitness very seriously, making gains, getting big, getting buff. Influence, the brand identity. So Influence is a fashion magazine for the modern woman who her fashion icons aren't kind of celebrities, actresses, but more the modern social influencer. The brand identity, it's very modern, up to date, so that's why it's also a brand that's not completely out of reach like Vogue. The things that it mentions are affordable, like prettylittlething.com, for example. So it's a more of an accessible brand than Vogue. Kind of the fashion that Influence is linked to, it's not all about high catwalk fashion. It's more to do with casual wear, like loungewear, hoodies, jogger, kind of looking nice everyday type thing. Right, structuring the statement of aims. So 250 words or thereabouts. So you're going to want kind of 60 to 70 words per paragraph. I would structure it into, so you can structure it however you like, but I would suggest going with this 3-paragraph structure that makes sure you kind of hit all the criteria for a good statement of aims. So first paragraph, I would make the first paragraph about when you did your research, what did you learn about the genre? So this is why I encouraged you to look at tons of different gaming magazines, beauty magazines, whatever, and look at what they had in common. I asked you to do that so that when it comes to explaining your own magazine, you can show that you haven't just chucked everything on a page. You've thought really carefully about it. You've studied other magazines within the genre so that to make sure that yours fits into that genre. So what did you learn about the genre from your research? Here's an example. I'm not writing a whole paragraph for you. I'm just going to give you an example of a sentence that I might put in this section for Gaines magazine. So researching other fitness magazines, I've learnt that a convention is something they have in common, something they usually do, was to include a strong looking model on the cover and a pose that emphasised their muscular physique. That is, if you look at fitness magazines on Google Images, they've all got a strong person on the cover. So, and they're all posing in a way that emphasises their muscles. So for my own main image, I'm therefore using, and then I'll talk about my own model and how I've got him posing, etc., etc. So there's an example of me saying, I found out this from my research, so I applied it to my product in this way. And I've referred to something specific from my product. I haven't just said, so I've put a strong man on my cover. I'm going to go into detail. I'm going to say I've had him holding a weight. I've had him tensing his muscles. I've had him wearing tight-fitting clothing to show off his pecs, etc., etc. So there's an example for Gaines magazine. This would be what I would kind of start off writing if I were doing my statement of aims for Influence magazine. So I would say, researching other fashion magazines, a convention I noticed was using a tri-colour palette which complements the cover model's outfit. So a tri-colour palette, it's like 3 colours within the colour palette. And it complements, it kind of ties in with and looks nice with what the cover model's wearing. And then I'm therefore using, and that's why I've gone on to use like kind of a nude, a mauve, a black and a white. It all ties in really nicely with her outfit. So again, what I'm doing is I'm using media terminology. I'm referring to something I found out in my research, and I'm showing precisely how and where I've done that in my own product. I'm kind of backing up my points here by referring to my cover, but don't forget you can refer to your double page spread as well, and you should refer to your double page spread and what you've picked to do for it and your colour scheme for it somewhere in the statement of aims. You need to mention both products. It's not enough just to mention the cover, so I'll just put that out there. Right, paragraph 2. So paragraph 1, what you learnt about the genre and how you applied that in your design. Paragraph 2, what brand identity you wanted to create for your magazine and how you did it. What's the brand identity? What makes your brand stand out? What defines it? What makes it different to other brands? This is what I would say for Gaines magazine in this second paragraph. I want my brand identity to be associated with power and strength. So when people pick up Gaines magazine, I want them to feel like this magazine's going to make them feel powerful and make them feel strong with whatever its contents are. Therefore, I have chosen the masthead Gaines as it connotes building muscle and getting stronger. I've also chosen large, bold, capitalised typography for the masthead because this connotes power and dominance. So this is the paragraph where you need to start talking about what you're denoting and what it connotes. So in this second paragraph, I would expect to see the word connotes crop up quite a lot because you're explaining what you've done with the media language on your cover to create this identity for your magazine. I've used lots of media terminology in there again. I've used, the word brand identity itself is good media terminology. The masthead I've referred to, typography, so the type of lettering I've used. If I was doing this paragraph for Influence magazine, this is what I might have put. So I want my brand identity to be associated with femininity and being up to date with the latest trends. I've therefore used a colour palette of pinks and nudes as they are trending colours and connote fresh, modern femininity. The square sans serif fonts I've used also connote that my magazine is very modern and current. So again, lots of terminology, colour palette, typography, sans serif. So I'll just remind you of this. So with fonts, you have two different types. Fonts are categorised into two different types. You have serif fonts. So serif fonts, which I haven't used in either of these magazines, are the fonts like Times New Roman, where they have little kind of like ticks at the end of them. It makes it look quite traditional, quite old-fashioned. So like Quality Street uses in its advert a serif font. But I've used sans serif because it's more modern. Looks more modern, more up-to-date. More with the times. Again, what I've done there is I said, this is what I wanted my brand identity to be. These are some of the decisions I made with my design because this is what they would connote to the audience. So remember, I'm just giving you sample sentences here, but you're going to need, for each paragraph, to mention maybe like 3 things about your design because you do need to get it up to at least 225 words, 250 approximate, and 275 as a maximum. Right, the last paragraph. I want you to really talk about what you've done to appeal to your target demographic. So what you've done to meet the brief of appealing to that demographic. So remember I said I've designed these covers for a different target demographic. Demographic meaning a section of society. So the demographic that people were asked to target last year was 16 to 24-year-olds. This year, your target demographic is 14 to 20-year-olds, so it's basically teenagers, people around your age. So this sentence I've written here, it's for the old brief. Keep remembering, you are targeting 14 to 20-year-olds. So I've put, I'm appealing to an audience of 16 to 24-year-old fitness fans by using an informal mode of address for them to better identify with. I use youthful slang and common fitness jargon in my cover lines, for example, level up, arm game, and leg day. Right, let me just explain. I've used a lot of terminology there, so let me just explain it. Informal mode of address. So your mode of address is how you're speaking to the audience. A more formal mode of address would be using very sophisticated vocabulary and keeping your language formal, not chatty or colloquial or slang in any way. An informal mode of address is more slang, it's more colloquial, it's more chatty, it's more friendly. So, for instance, me saying your arm game, that's like slang. I'm going to level up my, fashion game or something. Terms like leg day, that's something, I've said that's fitness jargon because people who are into fitness will know what leg day is, and most people dread it. It's when you go to the gym and you're working on your legs. So I've really tried to kind of cry out and grab the attention of that audience by using terms that they use and by using a style of language that they use. Younger people tend to talk in a more informal way. With Influence magazine, okay, so explaining what I've done there to try and target that audience of 16 to 24-year-old females who are into fashion. I've put, I'm appealing to an audience of 16 to 20-year-old females by referring in my cover lines to fashions that are more popular with them. For example, loungewear, prom dresses, party dresses. I've also appealed to their love of social media by including intertextual links to Instagram and social media influencers. So there you go. I have explained, I've made it clear I know who my audience is, and I've done stuff on purpose to appeal to them. But please don't forget, your audience are 14 to 20-year-olds. You need to write something a bit different here. So you need to say, I'm appealing to an audience of 14 to 20-year-old boys or girls. So just to recap, your first paragraph, you want to talk about what you learned about the genre from your research. So what you learned about fashion magazines, what you learned about sports magazines, whatever it was. Your second paragraph, decisions you've made to create a certain identity for your brand. And the last paragraph, you want to talk about your audience and decisions you've made with your cover, with your double page spread, to really grab their attention and make them want to buy your magazine. Right, there are a few things, if you want to aim for top marks with the statement of aims and get kind of like 8, 9, 10 marks out of 10, there are a few things you can include that can make it even better. But again, it's not that many words, so just be really selective about what you're writing about. Do not waffle or repeat yourself. Don't waste a single word. So what you could add, and you can kind of add this throughout, it doesn't need to be a tag on, it could be like in any of the paragraphs. Audience profiles, we've done a little bit about this in lesson, but I'll recap it for you. So audiences are often categorized by magazines into their socio-economic status. So what that means is kind of where they stand in society in terms of social status and economic status, so what their job is and how much they earn. And audiences are categorized into these kind of letters. So if your social grade is an A, that means you're like a high up manager, like up at the top type thing. B, you've got like an in-between managerial type job, just like kind of like a professional job. So I guess like a teacher or solicitor. C1, so for C1, you probably need a university degree or some kind of higher qualification. You might work in an office, but you might manage other people. You're kind of like a junior manager, I guess. And then you go down to C2, so a skilled manual worker. So you might be a builder, you might be a plumber, an electrician. You had to learn a skill in order to do that trade, but you didn't necessarily have to go to uni or anything. D, a semi or unskilled manual worker. So you work in a factory or you work in a shop, something like that. And then E, basically E is if you're a pensioner, if you don't make very much money at all, you're unemployed or you're on benefits. Normally, when we talk about kind of the target audience for a magazine, we split audiences up into two sections. So we will say that the audience has a high percentage of ABC1 readers or a high percentage C2DE readers. So what that means is some magazines have a high ABC1 percentage, which means that most of their readers have a university education, are quite well off and make a decent amount of money. Some magazines, however, some newspapers as well, have a higher C2DE percentage of readers. So what that means is most of their readers don't have a job or have a really low paid job, don't have a university education. So thinking in terms of newspapers, for example, The Sun, which has a really low reading age, uses more pictures than text, uses not too ambitious vocabulary or anything like that in its articles, has a higher C2DE percentage within its readership. Whereas a newspaper like The Times, which has a lot of text, which has a lot higher reading age, kind of addresses more serious topics, looking at kind of politics, the economy, etc., etc., that has a higher ABC1 percentage within its readership, because it's the type of newspaper that people will pick up if they have a higher level of education. If you look at the magazines that I showed you earlier, like Vogue, is going to have quite a high ABC1 percentage in its readership, because why would you pick up Vogue, which features kind of fashions that cost you thousands of pounds, if you're unemployed? It just wouldn't be very nice to read. Same for GQ, like it's always on its cover, like it's talking about expensive cars, suits, gadgets. It's got a high ABC1 percentage within its readership because it's targeting that professional man who's quite well off. So think about your audience. Are they likely, so 14 to 20-year-olds, are they likely to be in high-flying careers, well off? So therefore, are you going to have a majority ABC1 percentage in your audience? Or are they going to be probably not earning much, if anything, and therefore most of your readership will be within the C2DE category? You'll have a high C2DE percentage within your readership. So looking at 16 to 24-year-olds, really, the majority of them will fall into the C2DE category. Not many 24-year-olds, like some, but not that many 24-year-olds by that age are in kind of high-flying jobs and making loads of money. So think about your audience, 14 to 20-year-olds, right? That's going to impact your magazine because, for instance, in Influence magazine, for example, that I've designed, I haven't given people a voucher for, I don't know, Prada or Gucci, because my readers, 16 to 24-year-olds, probably can't afford those products. What they can probably afford, however, are outfits from prettylittlething.com. So that's why I've featured that brand and not a more expensive one. You'll also notice that I've made my magazine $2.99. I could have made it more expensive, but I didn't, because I thought 16 to 24-year-olds, with a lot of them falling within the C2DE category, aren't going to have that much money to spend on a magazine. They don't have much of a disposable income, so your disposable income being kind of spare money you've got to spend. And that's why I've got the smaller price tag there. So you can bring audience profiles into your statement of aims as well. Show that you understand which category your audience fall into and how you tried to cater for that with your magazine. Another challenge, something else you might want to bring in to help you get like the highest mark possible for your statement of aims, would be to refer to uses and gratifications theory. So just to recap, uses and gratifications theory is a theory devised by two theorists called Blumler and Katz, and they have kind of said there are four main reasons that we use and enjoy the media. So gratification kind of meaning enjoyment. So why do we use it in the first place, and why do we enjoy using it? And they've said that those four main reasons are, number one, diversion. Another term used for diversion sometimes being entertainment. So one of the reasons why you will tune into Netflix, for example, is for diversion, entertainment, to enjoy yourself. I've got here, we consume the text to get away from our everyday problems, to relax and not have to think too hard about what is happening. So you'll often stick a film on Netflix for that reason, to just get away from everyday life and just chill out. Diversion. And some people read magazines for diversion as well. Another of the reasons as to why people use and enjoy the media, they have said, is surveillance. Surveillance means basically to get information about the world. So we consume the media text to learn more about society. The media text educates us and uncovers things that we did not know. So you might pick up a fashion magazine to get information about what's on trend in the minute. You might pick up a fitness magazine to get information on the best diet to follow to build muscle, for example. Another of the reasons, personal relationships. So Often we consume text to validate and enhance the relationships with friends and family around us. Right, so sometimes you might start watching a series on Netflix because your friend's watching it, and then you can talk about it then and gossip about it then, and it can bring you closer to your friend. Or sometimes certain media products you use, for instance, like social media platforms like TikTok, like Instagram, so that you can connect with other people. And the last one, and I think this one's definitely applicable when it comes to magazines, is to help develop your own personal identity. So who you are, the type of person you want to be. You find that out, and you kind of reinforce that upon others by consuming certain media products. So it's got here, we consume the media text to enhance our own identity and relationship with the world. We identify with the character, location, or situations that we see. This can apply to a TV show, for instance, because there's a certain character in it and you're like, oh my god, I'm so like them. Or you might be more likely to watch a TV show about teens because you're a teen, so you can identify. It appeals to your personal identity. You may well pick up a fashion magazine because it's got your favourite celebrity on the cover, and you look up to them and you want to be like them and you want to forge your identity around them. You might be more likely to pick up a magazine that mentions things that relate more to you. So I've got on that Influence magazine, I've spoken a lot about social media because social media is a big part of 16 to 24-year-olds' lives nowadays. I've mentioned loungewear because 16 to 24-year-olds, a lot of what they wear, particularly at the minute anyway, is loungewear, hoodies, tees, trainers. Giving you a little sentence starter there in case you weren't sure how to put it into a sentence. You could say, my magazine provides surveillance by including this. My magazine provides diversion. My magazine provides opportunity for developing personal identity by providing a celebrity interview with an aspirational figure who people might look up to and want to be like, or by giving fashion tips to help people develop their own style, etc., etc. So that's it. But like I say, you'll find that 250 words isn't actually that much. So everything you say must have a point to it. If you want to get higher marks, 8, 9, 10 marks, try and talk about audience profiles, try and talk about uses and gratifications theory, use as much media terminology as possible, and keep referring to specific aspects of your product. Refer to the cover and the double page spread at least once somewhere, both aspects. And that's it for the statement of aims. And if you get that done, that's the coursework done. As ever, email me or leave a comment if you're stuck or need any help with anything. But that's it for now. Bye-bye.